Once upon a time, there was 3 people. However, what could have happened to the other 2? Where could they be? Where could they be? There wasn't any sighting of the other person. What might have happened to 1? There was an investigation as to what might have happened to them. No one was sure as to what happened to the missing suspect. The next day, the police did door-to-door inquiries, asking people if they had seen the missing suspect. At this stage, the next day, the next day the police started digging to see what they could find. But they weren't able to find anything. It was very unclear where the 2 people was. No one had any sign of them. It was a real mystery. It was very unclear as to what might have happened No one was really too sure as to how this person went missing. The next day the investigation continued, so they could get to the bottom of where the suspect was. However, there was an item of clothing left behind, but it was not clear whether the item of clothing was... However, there was a twist. Yeah, it was not clear whether the item of clothing was. However, there was a twist. There seemed to be a body that was in the woods, and it seemed to be the body of the missing suspect. However, nothing was yet confirmed. The police had not confirmed anything as things stood. It was still a mystery. There might still be hope. The police have denied that the bodies were the bodies of the 2 missing people. The following day, as the investigation continued, they wanted more time to speak to the people and to find out what had happened to the 2 people who were named as Toby Samuels and Kevin Wilkinson. There is still no sighting of Toby Samuels and Kevin Wilkinson. There was real concern for the families of Toby Samuels and Kevin Wilkinson. They were fearing the worst, but what was clear from the police was they were really determined to find them. They are not giving up hope yet of finding these 2 individuals. They were determined to find these two people and reunite them with their families. The police were still very confident of finding the 2 people that were missing and reuniting them with their friends and their families. However, the following day, the police confirmed that the bodies in fact were the 2 bodies of Toby Samuels and Kevin Wilkinson. Previously, the police denied that these were the bodies. They didn't want to make any comment before, but it was confirmed that these were in fact the bodies of Toby Samuels and Kevin Wilkinson. The question that still needs to be answered is how did this happen to the 2 people? It was really unclear as to what happened. No one knew how the bodies got where they were in the first place. The friend of Toby Samuels and Kevin Wilkinson, Ricky Scott, he couldn't believe what had happened to Toby Samuels and Kevin Wilkinson. He described them at their funerals as very bright people and described how they met. The next day the families were still trying to get to terms with the loss of their loved ones. It was a really difficult time for the families. They couldn't believe what had happened to their sons. The next day the friend Ricky Scott, he was in real shock. He didn't expect his friends from school who were aged in their 20s. He broke down in tears. He arrived at the cemetery trying to think about all the things that he and his mates did together, all the really fun things they did together. The next day the family of Toby Samuels and Kevin Wilkinson decided to give donations for their support. Following the devastating news with Toby Samuels and Kevin Wilkinson, the next day, the families were still trying to come to terms with the loss of their sons, Toby Samuels and Kevin Wilkinson, who were aged 17. They had just started college in Huddersfield. They were both in their first year at college. They were both doing English and Maths entry 3. The next day, the families did their housework. They were trying to get on with everyday life. It wasn't easy for them, but they were determined to not let it affect them. They were really determined to try and stay reunited as a family. They know what their sons will be thinking looking down. They would want them to continue normal life. The next day, the family of Toby Samuels, they went out for pizza. They went out to a restaurant, and they had an Italian. They had a really nice pizza. And then they decided they would go home and settle down for the night. They would try and get over it with the loss of their son. The next day, they drove to the beach. They decided they would go to Blackpool. But for the day, they were travelling from Huddersfield, where both families currently live. The locals suggested that they have a stand named after them at the John Smith Stadium. The next day, the families went to the John Smith Stadium, and there was a minute's applause, and there was a minute's silence for Toby Samuels and Kevin Wilkinson, who were both murdered. They were both murdered after going on a night out. And then there were some youths who murdered these individuals. Following these gang of youths were sentenced to life in prison following the murders of Toby Samuels and Kevin Wilkinson. The next day, the families went to the Rep of Ireland to watch Ronan Keating. They were starting to really feel better. The families were starting to get involved and joining in with the singing. The next day, the families met up and had lunch together. They went to Frankie and Benny's and had a cheeseburger and chips, and then had a chocolate brownie for dessert. Later that evening, the families went back to their own houses and they watched Gogglebox on Channel 4. The next day, they went on Look North with Harry Grayson and Laura Ronson. Yeah, and they thanked everyone for their support and for the really kind messages. Later that evening, they had their tea. Then decided they would have an early night because they had a very busy day the next day. The following day, both families, they went to the Yorkshire Sculpture Park, the end of Sam Jenkinson. But okay, we're done.